Hi, beautiful people. Breaking news. A man was shot by the federal agents, ICE. Sometime today. I'm still covering this. There's not that much information out. You have the mayor of Minneapolis. He spoke. Maybe Tim Walz did. So I have to watch this with you guys and kind of follow along. So I'm going to share this. Everything I share for educational for these purposes. And I'm going to get right into these videos because somehow... yeah, there's just a lot that's going on over there in Minneapolis. People are losing their lives over this protest.
And they keep pushing people, you know?
This is the best video I could find on it. Hey, The Remix, thank you for being a member. How you doing? I'm well, The Remix.
Oh,
Like, guys, it's not no.
they
The
killed
Remix.
him! Did they kill that guy? Are you kidding me, dude? Not again! Are you kidding me? That guy's dead. Oh, what the? They killed him? Did they kill that guy? Are you kidding me, dude? Not again! Are you kidding me? That guy's dead.
I just saw a video. More than 6 masked agents pummeling one of our constituents and shooting him to death. How many more residents, how many more Americans need to die or get badly hurt for this operation to end? How many more lives need to be lost before this administration realizes that a political and partisan narrative is not as important as American values? How many times must local and national leaders must plead with you, Donald Trump, to end this operation and recognize that this is not creating safety in our city? As you'll hear from Director Sayer in just a second, we have seen these kinds of operations in other places, in other countries, but not here in America. Not in a way where a great American city is being invaded by its own federal government. I'm done being told that our community members are responsible for the vitriol in our streets. I'm done being told that our local elected officials are solely responsible for turning down the temperature. Just yesterday, we saw 15,000 people peacefully protesting in the streets, speaking out, standing up for their neighbors. Not a single broken window, not a single injury. Those peaceful protests embody the very principles that both Minneapolis and America was founded upon. Conversely, the mass militarized force and unidentified agents who are occupying our streets, that is what weakens our country. That is what erodes trust in both law enforcement and in democracy itself. So to everyone listening, stand with Minneapolis. Stand up for America. Recognize that your children will ask you what side you were on. Your grandchildren will ask you what you did to act to prevent this from happening again. To make sure that the foundational elements of our democracy were rock solid. What did you do to protect your city? What did you do to protect your nation? This is not what America is about. This is not a partisan issue. This is an American issue. This administration and everyone involved in this operation should be reflecting. They should be reflecting right now and asking themselves, what exactly are you accomplishing? If the goal was to achieve peace and safety, this is doing exactly the opposite. If the goal was to achieve calm and prosperity, this is doing exactly the opposite. Are you standing up for American families right now? Or are we tearing them apart? The invasion of these heavily armed masked agents roaming around on our streets of Minneapolis, emboldened with a sense of impunity, it has to end. This is not how it has to be. So, to President Trump, this is a moment to act like a leader. Put Minneapolis, put America first in this moment. Let's achieve peace. Let's end this operation, and I'm telling you, our city will come back. Safety will be restored. We're asking for you to take action now to remove these federal agents.
Information that we have, which is very limited. This is a 37-year-old white male who is a Minneapolis resident, and we believe he is an American citizen. We have not been told any official reports of what has led up to the shooting, but we have seen the video that is circulating on social media. Our demand today is for those federal agencies that are operating in our city to do so with the same discipline, humanity, and integrity that effective law enforcement in this country demands. We urge everyone to remain peaceful. We recognize that there's a lot of anger and a lot of questions around what has happened, but we need people to remain peaceful. In the area, we have an unlawful assembly at this time. Minneapolis police have given multiple warnings for the crowd to disperse. We are asking for people to avoid the area and to leave if you are there. We have requested mutual aid from the Minnesota State Patrol and from all our local and county regional partners. We ask everyone to remain calm and to please do not destroy our own city.
We now have reaction from Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. He said he has spoken with the White House about the incident, which he described as sickening, and called for the end of an aggressive immigration enforcement effort. I just spoke with the White House after another horrific shooting, he said, by federal agents this morning. Minnesota has had it. This is sickening, Walz said. He added that, quote, the president must end this operation, pull the thousands of violent, untrained officers out of Minnesota now, end quote.
Betsy Klein is at the White House there, senior White House reporter. What are you hearing, Betsy? You heard in that press conference a question from a reporter asking the police chief of a point of view coming from the Department of Homeland Security. And he said, you know, point blank, federal authorities are not sharing information with him and his office. So what are you hearing?
Well, certainly, Frederica, this is a very fluid and evolving situation. Officials have acknowledged that to us. We also heard from local officials on the ground who said that it is a quite volatile situation. But we know that President Trump has been briefed, according to a White House official, and the Trump administration is monitoring all of this and the reaction to it extremely closely. I want to call your attention to some notable comments from the mayor of Minneapolis. He said, quote, this is a moment to act like a leader. He was directly addressing the president there. He told him to end this operation, take action now to remove federal agents. And it comes as there has been somewhat of a shift in tone in recent weeks from President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance. They have acknowledged in recent days that ICE officers and other federal agents can make mistakes. Now, with that in mind, I want to read to you a good portion of this statement from Homeland Security spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin. She says, quote, at 9:05 a.m. Central Time, as DHS law enforcement officers were conducting a targeted operation in Minneapolis against an illegal alien wanted for violent assault, an individual approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun seen here. She includes a photo of that handgun, a Sig Sauer. The officers, she goes on to say, attempted to disarm the suspect, but the armed suspect violently resisted. More details on the armed struggle are forthcoming. Fearing for his life and the lives and safety of fellow officers, an agent fired defensive shots. Medics on scene immediately delivered medical aid to the subject, but was pronounced dead at the scene. The suspect also had 2 magazines and no ID. This looks like a situation where an individual wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement. So certainly from the last sentence of that, no signs of de-escalation at this point from the Trump administration. And it comes as tensions on the ground are so high. This is the 3rd shooting this month by a federal officer. The first, of course, was January 7th, the deadly shooting of Renee Good. There was also 1 week later, an ICE agent shot a Venezuelan immigrant who they said was resisting arrest. He had non-life-threatening injuries. And now this situation, as officials on the ground are asking for a cooling of tensions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 3 shootings involving federal authorities, but now the second.
Again, now being asked to deny what we saw with our own eyes. We watched the videos of a masked federal agent shooting Alex in the back multiple times while he was pinned down by more than 6 other masked federal agents. And once again, DHS has come out with a predetermined narrative that contradicts everything we saw with our own eyes. 2 37-year-old Minnesotans are now dead. A poet and a nurse. For what? We cannot lose any more lives. We need a full, transparent, and comprehensive investigation led by our BCA. And ICE and Border Patrol need to halt all operations in the state and leave immediately. And Congress cannot be complicit in facilitating these lethal operations and federal occupation of our cities. We are standing here as a united front today, pleading for our Republican colleagues who control the Congress and who took the same oath to defend the Constitution and uphold the rule of law that we did, to stand up and stop this. Put your state and your country first. Put it ahead of your loyalty to this president. Minnesotans are in agony, watching their communities terrorized and families torn apart. ICE and CBP agents are traumatizing our communities, violating Minnesotans' constitutional rights, unlawfully detaining and arresting United States citizens, racially profiling people, forcing schools, restaurants, and businesses to close. And people are dying at the hands of these federal agents. It has to stop now before anyone else is hurt. And I return it to the mayor. Thank you.
I'll just point out again the difference between tens of thousands of people just yesterday peacefully protesting, standing up for their neighbors, no injuries, no damage to property. That is how Minnesota and Minneapolis shows up versus what we saw again this morning. That is what is causing chaos on our streets. Those actions that we saw on video, and you can believe your own eyes. With that, we'll open it to questions.
Senator Klobuchar, are you willing to use every lever of power at your disposal as a member of the minority party to stop what is happening here, up to and including a government shutdown?
Right now, we are focused on getting ICE out of this state. And of course, we will use every lever that we have. But I do remind people that Donald Trump runs the White House. And sadly, because to date we have not seen the Republican members of Congress standing up, he also seems to run the Congress. But the point here is that there are many changes that we could make. You know, why aren't we helping fund local law enforcement instead of what they did with this bill last summer where they tripled the budget? And why aren't they pledging to have a full investigation of what happened? I have a lot of respect for our local law enforcement here, and I appreciated the words of some of my colleagues who talked about the fact that people have to differentiate here with what they're doing on the front line every single day. So there are many things we could do. Budgets are a value choice. And that's what we're asking our Republican colleagues to do. I work across the aisle all the time. I work with them. And I know that many of them understand that what's going on right now is wrong. And so the way to get to a higher ground, honestly, is to get them to get ICE out of our state right now, to call the president, to speak out as we have been doing day after day after day, and to remember these little kids who are afraid to go to school, and to remember the people who are legal citizens who are wrestled to the ground, yelling, I am born here, I was born here, and to remember these two that we've lost. And I hope that's something that they all take home and that the people of this country do as they look at how they can get this administration to stop this.
Mayor Frank, can you talk about the legal case that you were pursuing and how this shooting changes your strategy? What is your best case scenario on Monday when you go to court?
Yeah. So there's two forms of request that we have been asking for. The first was this temporary restraining order. The other possibility is some form of injunctive relief. Now, I don't want to get too into the details because I'm bound to get something wrong, but the question is one of urgency and immediacy. The issue is that we recently saw somebody shot and badly injured. We then saw somebody shot and killed, and that was the second one. Chief, I think we've only had 3 homicides in the city this year. Is that right? 2 of them, ICE. 3 homicides. 2 of them were from ICE. So the relief that we're asking for is stopping this Operation Metro Surge in the immediacy. It's preventing this massive influx of agents that is making it very difficult for us to do our jobs in the city as well as we need to do them. And we need to do regular day law enforcement as well. Yes.
They defied a search warrant this morning. Do you think they'll abide by a court order from a federal judge?
They have to abide this. So the question is, they defied a search warrant this morning. Will they abide by a court order by a federal judge? Everybody listen to that question. The question is, will this administration abide by a court order? These are the underpinnings of our democracy, of our republic, and of this Constitution. The answer better be yes. Whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, you abide by those court orders. The answer has to be yes if you are a patriot for this country. And so, yes, my expectation is that they will abide by the court order because there is not an alternative.
Mayor Fry, if I could just ask you, and also Senator Klobuchar and the other legislators, the rhetoric today seems back to where it was in the aftermath of Renee Good, if not even higher. Senator Klobuchar posted on X, Stephen Miller, then the president slammed Senator Klobuchar's post. I mean, this is going on. The vitriol is through the roof on social media. Is there any way, or how are you going to come together? I mean, is there any way to approach the other side?
Yeah. I'll answer for myself and from the city's perspective, and certainly turn it to Senator Klobuchar. I want everyone to just quickly look at the juxtaposition between the way that Minneapolis is showing up and the way that the federal government is showing up. I want you to look at the difference between the elected leaders and our chief that you've heard talk just before me. They're calling for peace. They're calling for peace notwithstanding this horrific action from the federal government. What are they doing? They're not investigating the person that killed our citizens. They're investigating us. This is political retaliation. This is about a political narrative, and that narrative is making people less safe.
A number of us have spent the last few weeks making our views clear, standing our ground, but also reaching out to this administration, to Republican leaders, to try to get them to understand how dangerous this is, how unsafe this is. I met with chiefs from across the metropolitan area. Chief O'Hara was on this call, and they have been reaching out, some of them publicly, some of them behind closed doors. The business community has been reaching out. I have been personally reaching out to the president's chief of staff and spoken with her. We have done this day after day after day. So we're not just shutting out any discussions, but we've been explaining to them, and I know the governor has, how dangerous this situation is. And I specifically told people that someone else was going to die. I said this a few days ago. I said it might be by a car, it might be by some other way. And it just seems like you hope that they're going to de-escalate, and then they keep escalating it up. People out of Minnesota and let our local enforcement do our jobs. And I'll let some of my colleagues answer this.
Well, I'll just say that I completely agree with the mayor and the senator. But I mean, it is my obligation as a United States senator to speak about what I think is happening in my state and to define it for what I think it is. That is my job. And one thing I have learned about this president is that he does not respond to appeasement. He is a bully. He does not respond to people who appease him. He responds much better to strength than he does to weakness. And I think what we have seen in this state, I am so proud of it. We have seen a combination of strength and peacefulness that really says who we are. And I believe that that is our best path forward for trying to convince this administration that the path that they are on is dangerous to public safety, and it is a losing path that they must abandon.
What's your message to Minnesotans who are just wondering when this is going to be over? I think a lot of people are feeling very tired and are just wondering when this is going to end. What's your message to your constituents?
It will be over when we speak as one voice, as one Minnesota, as everybody has been out in the streets. You know, ICE was here in June, and there wasn't any problem. We weren't happy about it. There were people who we were concerned about the way that deportations and arrests were happening. We were worried. But we handled it in a peaceful way. The escalation now is not because Minnesota changed. It is because this White House and Stephen Miller have decided to change their tactics here.
What do you think?
It will end. It will end when our colleagues who are hearing from their constituents because they are reaching out to me and others, listen to their constituents and stand with their constituents and not stand with a White House that is not following the Constitution, breaking our laws, and not living up to the values of this country. That's when it will end.
What do you think the end game? What do you think the end game is for Donald Trump at this point? What is he hoping to accomplish with this? Anybody out there?
I don't think anybody knows.
I don't think anybody.
Look, I do not pretend to know what Donald Trump is thinking. I do know what they're saying publicly. And on the one hand, they are talking about this being an action that is required for safety, and it is doing exactly the opposite. It is creating danger in our state. Again, if this were about safety, there would be many, many options. Our governor has stated, I have stated, we are very much willing. In fact, we have been working with them to apprehend violent offenders, to prosecute these cases, to get criminals off of the streets. That is not what we are talking about right now. What they are also saying is that this is simply political retaliation. They are saying this is political retribution, and it's focused here on a blue city in a blue state. That's not how America works. Other countries function that way. We don't. And so no matter your background or your ideology, this should be of deep concern for you, no matter what town you're in America, because your town could be next. Your liberties, your freedoms could be sacrificed because of what this administration is doing.
And just, thank you. I know our end game, and our end game is to keep Minnesota safe. And so we are asking that ICE get off of our streets and out of our state. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, follow-up questions is to communications@minneapolismn.gov. Communications@minneapolismn.gov. Do you have any calls?
Mayor Fry, Senators Klobuchar and Smith, and other elected leaders speaking earlier today. This is a live vantage point of this massive demonstration in Minneapolis. Feels like temperature, -12 in the Twin Cities tonight. It's demonstrators gathering after pleas from city and state officials to remain peaceful. A lot to discuss with retired Marine Intelligence Officer, National Security Analyst, and host of the Strat podcast, Hal Kempfer. He's here with me. Hal, we've been through this earlier this month, a shooting in Minneapolis, and then tense protests afterward. One thing I want to focus on with you, though, to begin, is Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem stepping up to the podium earlier today, making some remarks, speaking to reporters about today's shooting. She was asked about a number of things. One stuck out to me, though. She was asked about, will President Trump use the Insurrection Act? She didn't exactly answer the question straightforward. I'm curious if you noticed anything in Noem's response and in general, Hal, explain to us what we need to know about why that question is even being asked during these times.
Well, Austin, that's a huge question. President Trump has mentioned last week before, he talked about the possibility of the Insurrection Act. This morning, he basically used terminology, what the governor of Minnesota were saying, what the mayor of Minneapolis were saying was, quote, inciting an insurrection, unquote, that exact term. So the Insurrection Act becomes very important. Now, with that said, Kristi Noem, as the Secretary of DHS, really doesn't have a say exactly in whether, certainly her counsel could be sought, but that is a presidential decision. That is not a DHS decision. So her office would be included certainly in whatever discussion is happening there, obviously because there's so many federal law enforcement that are under DHS jurisdiction doing operations there. And that's the purpose for, if they were to incite or to invoke the Insurrection Act, that would be obviously tied to the DHS mission, the ICE mission, the federal immigration enforcement mission that's going on there. So obviously it's something she'd be involved with, but it is not her place to say one way or the other. And certainly as a cabinet official, you don't want to get ahead of the president. I don't know if the president's going to decide to do that tonight. I don't know if, or tonight or today. I don't know if he's going to do it tomorrow. I don't know if he's going to do it some point during the week. I don't know if he's going to do it, period. He may, he brought this up earlier and then he, held off actually invoking it. He may be observing the situation and trying to figure out, is this an actual insurrection? I will tell you right now that some of the terms, some of the language that was used by Governor Walz and certainly by Mayor Frey of Minneapolis would certainly be language that they could cite if they were to invoke the Insurrection Act. So what does that mean? All right. Under federal law, if the president was to send federal troops, say into Minneapolis, that they are under what's called posse comitatus. That law prohibits federal troops, federal military from doing law enforcement functions. That's something that's come up last spring and throughout the summer and through the fall of last year. In fact, throughout all last year, when troops were being deployed or trying to be deployed to Portland, Los Angeles, Chicago, Washington, D.C., a little bit different D.C. because it's a federal district, Memphis, all of that stuff, a lot of stuff focused on the posse comitatus, because federal troops can't do law enforcement functions unless there's something that supersedes that. What supersedes it is the Insurrection Act. It's been around since the beginning of the Republic. I think the first time it was ever cited was the Whiskey Rebellion. That was back in the early 19th century. So it goes back a very, very long time. But if he was to do that, then federal troops could. Who would that be? Possibly a brigade from 11th Airborne Division coming out of Alaska. That's who they've somewhat indicated that they are always federal law enforcement function. And then the other one would be potentially federalizing the Minnesota National Guard, which is interesting because Governor Walz has talked about mobilizing and deploying the National Guard to do a state mission assisting state and local law enforcement using state authority, state active duty. The president could, under law, if he so choose to, he could actually invoke the Insurrection Act and basically, invoke the Insurrection Act, but also federalize those Minnesota National Guard troops, and he could actually have the use of them as well. And that would take away the Minnesota National Guard from being an asset from Governor Walz.
I've been looking at Mayor Frey's social media account. He has been sending out messages about requesting the National Guard. I'll read a little bit of this verbatim. He says, quote, "I've formally requested National Guard assistance to support our 600 Minneapolis police officers. I've been clear for weeks. The situation is unsustainable. Our community is tired. Our officers are tired. Our businesses are tired. Our top priority is safety, and this will help," he says. Hal, I know we have to go a little shorter with you today. I want to make sure I play this video. This is the video we have of the shooting itself. I just would love your take. You've seen it. I know you've had some time to digest it. Your takeaways, your observations.
Well, my takeaway, first off, as you see, they take both of the individuals down, and then they're trying to subdue them. Obviously, with the one individual, Alex Preddy, he had a weapon. He had a Sig Sauer pistol, from what I understand. There were two magazines. One was loaded in the weapon. The other magazine was reportedly a high-capacity magazine. Depending on which type of Sig Sauer pistol that is, there are magazines out there where he could carry in one magazine 20 rounds, or even a one where they can carry 30 rounds that could fit into a magazine well. And Kristi Noem, the DHS secretary, referenced that he had dozens of rounds. Dozens of rounds means multiple, which tells me that whatever pistol he had, he probably had somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 40 rounds at his disposal. That's a lot more rounds than one would normally expect of someone who, if they were carrying a pistol for personal self-defense. That's the sort of ammunition that someone would carry if that was a duty weapon. That's the sort of thing, for example, that federal law enforcement would carry, would be a magazine, with a weapon with a magazine and maybe a couple of extra magazines on the side. That would be something they would carry. Why? Because law enforcement are always ready for the possibility of a gunfight. You just never know when it's going to happen. That's just the nature of the law enforcement mission. And this guy came out there with what appears to have been a lot of ammunition. Now, does that mean that he was going to get into a gunfight with them? Or does it mean that he just used really bad judgment? One thing you do see here is you see it breaks into the scrum on the ground. It is tough to tell from this vantage point. It was tough to tell from the vantage point across the street as well. What exactly is happening there? Did he go for his weapon? And you have to remember when things are, one of the stated purpose of why they had stopped them or what they were doing with him was to disarm him. If he reached down for that weapon, if he was trying to get that weapon, that changes the entire encounter. At that point, once he's going for a weapon or once he's going to use deadly force or shows the intent to use deadly force, has the means to use deadly force, at that point, the threat assessment of the officers, the CBP officers or the ICE officers changes, and they would probably, at least one or more of them would immediately assess that that there was a chance for, of deadly force where they could end up on the wrong end of that gunfight, and they would immediately be fighting for their lives as well. It ceases to be a non, it ceases to be just enforcement action. It starts to become something where the officers could see a threat to themselves or others because this guy has the means. He's definitely resisting, which is indicative of intent not to comply, and that would shift it. So I just bring that out there. Again, I don't know. I'm not in the scrum. Have I done training with this where someone, when you're trying to, search somebody or something like that and they pull a weapon on you? Yeah, that's happened. Have I ever had a situation where someone tried to pull a weapon on me and I had to stop them from doing that in the real world? Yeah, that's happened too. And I will tell you, those things are close in, they're personal, and your brain starts kicking in really fast. There's a lot of things that are going, and believe me, the adrenaline is pumping very, very quickly when those things are happening. So again, I don't know. I don't want to second guess him, but certainly if he showed up with a weapon and he had a large capacity magazine full of rounds, that would immediately go into my threat assessment if I was one of those officers there.
Hal Kemper is the host of the Strat podcast. You can listen to Strat anywhere podcasts are available. Thanks, Hal.
All right. Thank you, Austin.
All right. What we're going to do next, just getting this in from our partner station, Fox 9 in Minneapolis. Station interviewing the former commissioner of CBP. This is a short little piece of tape here. Let's play this out. On the other side, we're going to be joined by more experts and analysts.
The Border Patrol is called the Border Patrol because they work on the border. They work in rural, rugged environments, oftentimes without backup. The Border Patrol is called the Border Patrol because they work on the border. They work in rural, rugged environments, oftentimes without backup. So this isn't the kind of being parachuted into a city like Los Angeles or Portland or Minneapolis or Chicago, where they have the skill set or the experience or the training. And that's been stated time and time and time again, including in an Inspector General's report.
So if they don't have that type of tailored training, should they be deployed into these communities?
No, not at all. There are ways that ICE has actually made immigration arrests. They've deported people, etc. But ICE has been supplanted by putting the Border Patrol in front. And the Border Patrol is clearly the wrong kind of unit to put in an urban environment.
In your view of what you've seen in Minneapolis so far, are DHS agents, including CBP and ICE, are they following their own policies in this execution of their mission?
Well, the first policy for DHS and also for Customs and Border Protection said that you should de-escalate, these situations that could lead to force. So I don't think we've seen any evidence whatsoever in any of these cities, including Minneapolis, where they've attempted to de-escalate the situation. People should be given a warning time and time again. And the judges have listened to the declarations. They've listened to the testimony. They've reviewed the videos. Judge after judge has come to this conclusion that these operations are clearly outside the normal practice of any law enforcement agency.
We've seen in Chicago, for example, there are discrepancies between official report.
You have to be very judicious in your remarks. And you have to say that here's what we know right now. This could change as the investigation progresses, and we're going to do a thorough and complete investigation.
Yeah, it sounds like the audio is a little bit tough to hear there. We apologize for that. Let's go back out to our live vantage point of the protests. Getting darker and darker. It's going to be pretty tough to see exactly what's going on out there in due time. It looks like Fox 9 Minneapolis is on top of this, and we will continue to check in with any and all images that come of these protests, whether from the sky or from the ground. We don't have any images on the ground right now. One thing I do know for sure, though, is we need to continue to discuss the law enforcement reaction, some of what we've been hearing from experts and analysts. I do want to bring in Jeffrey Halstead. Jeffrey is I just want to make sure everybody knows that Jeffrey is the former police chief for Fort Worth. He's also a spokesman for Genesis. Usually I have time to check in with you before we hit the air here, Jeffrey. I want to make sure that we're connected. Can you hear me?
Good evening. Yes, Austin, it's good to be with you tonight, and I hope you guys are staying safe.
You know, we've had a busy evening here, and I mean, gosh, it was just earlier this month you and I were covering the aftermath of the Renee Good shooting, and now our chopper is above a massive demonstration in Minneapolis in reaction to today's shooting. I'm going to start off by asking you a question that I just asked Hal Kempfer moments ago. You've seen the video that we've all seen. Your takeaways, and really, does anything about the tactics used here stand out to you?
Couple of things. I'm glad you phrased your question that way because it's really important for the viewers and a lot of the residents of Minneapolis to understand this. One thing for sure is what they were actually doing were being deployed in small team tactics. This is very common. This is the manner in which you approach in a fairly potential violent situation. Sometimes it is 4, 5, or 6 officers to 1 or 2 citizens because we're trying to establish what they are doing. So that is very common. A lot of people think it's too many officers. It is not. This is the way they're trained. What is questionable is what were the reasons or the predication for the investigatory stop? That's critical during the preliminary phase of this investigation. Was it obstructing the vehicle? Was it trespassing? Was it threatening remarks? We don't know yet. But what is absolutely critical is it looks a little bit haphazard, the manner in which they're trying to control the situation. But you have to remember, they do not have stable footing. They are really having a challenge getting an aggressive stance to have control over different parts of the body. And when you have that, your trained tactics and the standards in which you deploy to stop people in normal conditions is greatly altered because of the weather conditions they're facing. So that was one of the things that stood out to me. But then what is absolutely critical is going to be every single body cam video of all of the officers, ICE, National Guard, State Patrol, and or Border Patrol, and also the videos from all the citizens on the sidewalks and other perimeter areas. Those are absolutely key because in this conflict, you hear the word and one of the officers yells gun. That's very common when a gun is either seen, perceived, and or felt or displayed. And then there's the volley shots. And it is literally a quarter of a second later. It's essential to get that video to find out what was the threat command before a gun was either displayed or observed, and then the reactions afterwards.
Let's go live to Skyfox above this demonstration in Minneapolis. Jeffrey, we are
this breaking news out of Minneapolis, where a shooting has taken place. You're looking live at the scene as these pictures begin to roll in. Here are the details. Bill Melugin learned just after 10:15 a.m. about a Border Patrol shooting, multiple law enforcement sources confirming this to him. It took place at 26th Street East and Nicollet Avenue in Minneapolis. Border Patrol shot someone. CPR was being performed. The individual was on the scene with medics around him, was loaded into an ambulance and taken away. Unclear on his condition this morning. We learned that that individual was armed. There were 2 magazines. We've obtained a picture of the weapon that DHS tells us was on the individual who was shot. Governor Walz since then has come out and said he spoke with the White House, he said in his words, after another horrific shooting by federal agents this morning. Minnesota has had it, he said. This is sickening. The president must end this operation, pull the thousands of violent, untrained officers out of Minnesota now, Governor Walz said. With that, let's bring in Nicole Parker. Nicole, as we learn these details, we see the weapon. We're in the very preliminary stages, only sharing the details we know. What is your analysis with the limited information we have here at 1150?
That's a key point right there, Kaylee. This is a limited analysis because there's not a lot of information out at this point. But again, it's very important to note that it is from the perspective of the agent at the time that the shooting occurred. It is not Monday morning quarterbacking. Hindsight is 2020. It is, did those agents believe that they were in, serious danger of death or serious physical injury? And did they believe that that deadly force was justified? And we need to look very closely at the fact that they likely saw the firearm. That's a big red flag when you're a law enforcement officer and you're, the videos that I've seen, very limited, but it appears that they were in close contact with them. If you believe that a subject is grabbing for that weapon and that they could pull it out at any moment and use it and fire it against you, that is going into your checklist of things, is deadly force justified? And again, these agents are expected to make split-second decisions. It is between, life or death, action versus reaction, but we will let the full investigation work itself out. I know that there was a question that I believe was asked earlier on, and they asked, was the magazine in the gun? Let's say that the magazine was not in the gun, okay? Just a scenario that might be the case. Frankly, that's irrelevant because the agent, if they do not know whether or not it is loaded or not, when you are seeing a gun in your face and you're in the scuffle, then you have to, again, assume that is a gun. And the appearance of a gun, things of that sort, again, agents are going through their minds check by check. And when Tim Walz is coming out and saying, based on the quote that you shared, these are violent, untrained officers, with all due respect, having been a federal agent, we are highly trained officers. We go through extensive training. We go through these types of scenarios over and over and over to the point where you literally have to justify whether or not deadly force would be used in front of a legal panel. So for him to say that they are untrained, I think is highly inaccurate. And again, this is the rhetoric that is causing this problem in the first place.
And Nicole, I asked our team to put on the sound. You can now hear the sound from that video on the streets there. It seems to be peaceful at the moment, but I wanted to play this sound here as we're watching this video, because what Governor Walz said, look, he said he spoke with the White House. We do not have a comment from the White House just yet. We do have details coming in from DHS. But it seems to me, to your point, to talk about violent, untrained officers, to immediately characterize the shooting before the facts come out, it's a peaceful scene right here. But there's no doubt these individuals are hearing what the governor says, hearing what the White House says, and it would be wise to calm tensions rather than elevate them. And it seems the White House outreach was an attempt to do that with Governor Walz, to talk about the facts on the ground.
Correct. And so this is where the problem lies, is that you have these individuals. Why do you think that the Department of Justice is looking into these individuals for potential obstruction? Because they are off making these sorts of comments. They are riling up their constituents. Let the facts speak for themselves. But again, I take high offense to anyone that says that these federal agents are not trained. It is anything but the truth. We are very highly trained, regardless of what agency you're a member of, whether it's FBI, DEA, CBP, very highly trained, probably the best in the country.
Yeah, and Nicole, we're waiting to see if that weapon was loaded. Just one more question for you here. You point out just if the magazines were there and the gun was visible, what is an officer thinking? Because these officers have been rammed with cars. We saw that with ICE. This is Border Patrol. We await to hear what this interaction was, but there was a weapon, it seems to be involved.
Correct. I mean, it appears based on the coverage that you have that there was a weapon recovered at the scene. you see a weapon, you see a gun, automatically you're going again. I keep saying it, but it literally is like a checklist in your mind, and you're expected to make these split-second decisions. When there's a firearm, potentially the subject is grabbing for the firearm, has the firearm visible to the agent. And again, it's the agent's perspective. Did they believe that their life was in, some serious injury or physical death, imminent injury or death at the time that they made that decision? But let's look and see. Let's see what the investigation says. I would be curious to know if these CBP officers had body cams on. That's always extremely telling and very helpful for investigations. But what I've learned in these cases, and again, going back to George Floyd days, it always is different than what the media initially is able to show. And there's always multiple angles to it. And that's why it's always very important to withhold judgment until there is a full picture of what actually transpired. And so again, no one wants to use their firearm, Kaylee. When you're an officer, a law enforcement officer of any agency, local, state, federal, the last thing you want to do is have to pull your weapon. Because regardless of whether or not the deadly force is justified, the use of lethal force is justified, you know that you are going to go through the highest level of scrutiny. They are going to come after you, your family. I mean, we saw what happened after George Floyd. There were clean shoots happening, and police officers were going to jail for clean shoots. So I can tell you from the perspective of law enforcement, this is a last resort effort if you are using deadly force. And so let's keep everything in mind and leave it up to the professionals to conduct the investigation. And again, keep the constituents as calm as possible. No one wants to have to use their firearm, but if they do, trust me, the first thing they're going to be doing is going to the agent and doing a full investigation and saying, why did you think the deadly force was justified? And you have to legally articulate exactly why you did what you did.
Yes, no doubt about it. Nicole Parker, thank you for your analysis based on the limited set of facts that we have. You're looking live on the ground at Minneapolis, and you can hear, audible kind of chants of protest, peaceful scene right there at the moment. And just to reorient our viewers with the facts we have at the moment, we do not know if that weapon was visible to the Border Patrol agent. We don't know if it was drawn. All we know at the moment is that there was a weapon on the individual who was shot by Border Patrol. There were 2 magazines there as well. You're looking at an image of that. And as we pull back up that live image of Minneapolis, let's also bring in Mark Thiessen. Mark Thiessen, you're back with us. I wanted to get back with you because you mentioned Tim Walz's statement, and I just read it in full. I'm sure you heard it there. He said that he spoke with the White House this morning, and he said it's a horrific shooting by federal agents this morning. Minnesota, have had it. This is sickening. The president must end this operation, pull the thousands of violent, untrained officers out of Minnesota. So he has a very clear viewpoint early on in this. I also want to remind our viewers what President Trump said from the White House this week, the White House podium. He said, Renee Good was shot. That was the shooting a few weeks ago. I felt terribly about that. I understand both sides of it. That is a comment from the White House earlier in the week. We have no fresh comment from the White House now, but it strikes me that kind of sentiment is the sentiment we need now as we await a White House response.
Yeah, I mean, Tim Walz is, there but for the grace of God goes our vice president. I mean, what to come out and make such a highly charged statement when we don't know so many of the facts is simply outrageous. And the one fact we do know is that the Border Patrol shot someone who was armed. So that's a problem. If that person was an illegal migrant that they were targeting, there's no circumstance under which someone who's in our country illegally should have a gun. So that's a problem. If it was a protester, then that it could be because they responded. They've been pouring gasoline on the fire and encouraging these protesters to go and challenge ICE. Everything that the state of Minnesota is doing is putting people in danger, in greater danger. Because if the ICE has to go out into the community and find these people as opposed to taking them when they're being released from prisons in cooperation with local enforcement, then, thank God only the person with the gun was shot. Bystanders could have been shot. He could have pulled his weapon and started shooting back, and there could have been a shootout. There's so many possibilities of how this could have gone much worse than it did. And so they're forcing with the sanctuary policies, they're forcing ICE to go out and into the communities to find these criminal aliens, and they're encouraging people to interfere with them. They're not just not cooperating, which is what they should be doing. They are encouraging people to get in their way.
Yeah.
And so this is a recipe for danger. They are putting protesters' lives at risk. They are putting the illegal migrants who they claim they want to protect. They're putting their lives at risk. They're putting bystanders at risk by everything they're doing. So if anything is dangerous and unlawful, it's what Tim Walz is doing. And there ought to be consequences for how the state of Minnesota and the city of Minneapolis is handling this.
Mark, I want to bring back Nicole Parker here for a moment. Nicole, we just have a few moments here, but it seems to be some smoke is rising. I don't know if these are smoke bombs. It was peaceful when we began to talk, and we noted that rhetoric really matters now, and calming tensions really matters. What are we seeing on our screens now? What's your analysis of this?
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to keep things calm and, diffuse the tension. Again, Kaylee, this is not what agents ever want to have happen. It's insulting to hear this governor make it seem like, this is the wild, wild west and this is what they want to be doing. This is not what they want to be doing. They are literally enforcing the laws. These are targeted interactions. These are targeted operations. They are simply doing their job. And again, without the details of who this subject is, whether they were someone that they were arresting, whether they were a bystander, a protester, frankly, when you're looking at the deadly force policies, that's completely irrelevant. For them, they are literally looking at what we've gone over and over before. But my piece of advice to anyone in Minneapolis and frankly anywhere in the country, let the law enforcement do their job. If you don't want to run into problems, stay out of the vicinity of law enforcement. Allow them to perform and execute their legal warrants. And if you want to protest, you have that right. Stay out of the way. If you are a subject of an arrest warrant, whether you think it's justified or not, or whether or not you are okay with this, it doesn't matter. You cooperate with law enforcement and you let the legal system work its way through. So again, there is no reason for anyone to be having these types of issues. And we would approach subjects all the time. Kaylee, I work violent crime. Very few times did we have people resist because they knew when the FBI shows up or a federal agent, they respected law enforcement, and those days seem to be over.
Nicole,
and it's wrong.
Indeed, it is, and we appreciate your analysis. As we've monitored all this breaking news, people running across the screen, clearly escalating a little bit there. A 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time media briefing by Mayor Fry, Chief O'Hara, to respond to the shooting. We'll monitor that. That, of course, on your screen is the weapon that the individual had who was shot. In the meantime, our prayers go out to Minneapolis for calm, for peace. We pray for our Border Patrol, for our ICE, for the residents of Minneapolis this hour. Aisha Hasni takes it from here.
Hey, everyone.
Dang. All right, you guys. So that's what's going on right now. Okay, Mr. Carlos, I see you. I'll be praying for Minnesota. There was a time where we respected federal agents and law enforcement, and to try to interfere with an investigation, regardless if you like what's happening or not, is just putting yourself in harm's way. All in an attempt to make Donald Trump look bad, make Donald Trump seem as if he's just doing the most. But Donald Trump was elected. He was put into office to clean up the border crisis and everything that's going on there. Now, I am holding my thoughts on what happened in this case because I have not seen enough videos. My prayers go to any family that's lost a loved one over this. And let me switch together the same before I go. He wasn't wearing a mask. We've been able to identify the agent. Okay, I don't know what you're. But my prayers go out to Minnesota. And I get so much. I hear you guys' comments. I see you guys' comments under my videos. I feel your sentiments. And that's why I rather play what's happening now and then we can talk about it. I haven't even given my opinion about it, you guys. I'm playing what's happening in real time right now in our country, in Minnesota. And I have not seen. This is one of the worst I've seen in a long time. Okay. So that's what's happening. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I don't know if you guys have any final thoughts on what I showed you, but I will keep up with it. And hopefully there'll be a statement from the White House. There'll be a statement from Donald Trump that I could play for you later and an update. Or maybe there'll be more video footage. I pray I got to see you. Hey, Justin. Hey, King. I pray I could see you in real life to get a hug. Oh, Justin, you're so awesome. So we'll see what's going on there. Now, I know you guys do not like it when I say it because I've seen y'all in my comment section. Renee Good is not a martyr. I don't know what happened with this ICU nurse that lost his life. I just can't. I can't imagine. I can't imagine putting myself. When I see a federal agent doing their job, I don't jump in a line of fire. I stay my butt out the way at home. That's what I do. I get out of the way. But I'm not saying that I agree with people losing their life. But I feel it's too early to tell what really happened in this situation. There hasn't been enough out there. There hasn't been enough videos. Like with Renee Good, we see videos. It's okay, King. With Renee Good, we have seen videos from all angles. We see the vehicle, whether you guys agree or not, that officer got nicked, okay? And he responded with deadly force. That's what happened. I didn't say I agree or disagree. I'm just telling you what happened. With this case, why do you have so much ammunition out there if it's supposed to be a peaceful protest? Why would an ICU, I have questions. Why would an ICU nurse, okay, finally something that has to do with what I'm talking about. They removed his firearm. Why shoot him? Livery, maybe it was already in motion. I watched the same clip that you guys did, so I don't have an answer for that. I think that what's important right now is to de-escalate the situation. De-escalate. Now, the mayor is saying for the ICE agents to withdraw, for Donald Trump to call off the ICE agents. So is he saying that we just let people come in illegally, provide these sanctuary states for them to hide out, for American tax dollars to have to pay for that? Is that what the mayor is asking for? I don't think Donald Trump is going to agree with that. I don't feel that that's a reasonable compromise, if that makes sense. Why didn't the ICE agent walk away with his firearm? Walk away? Is it his job to walk away, Levery, or is it the other person's job to walk away? His job is to be there and do what he's doing. And if he's in the middle of an investigation, if he's in the middle of detaining someone, whether we like it or not, it's not our job to jump in the way. So why would the ICE agent walk away? That's like asking a police officer to walk away if he's trying to detain someone. The firearm was removed from his waist. It was not in his hand. Okay, Kumba, I hear you on that. I feel that we need to see more footage on what actually happened. I'm interested in what Donald Trump how the White House is going to respond. And the ICE agents are out there amongst a lot of angry people. It's slippery out there. The weather conditions are hard. Why make it harder? Why put yourself, if you know you're going to get tear gas, why jump in there to get tear gas so you could just say they did it to me too? Why? Some questions. Now, King, I don't know how y'all mod this chat because it's not easy. But I appreciate you guys that helped me out. Why confront ICE agents with the firearm? What and why the ammo? Uncle Claude, that is exactly what I was asking. That's exactly what I was asking as well. I have questions. I have questions on what's happening in the United States. And I'm telling you guys, I feel that we need to love this country enough to not want to see this happen. Okay? Because you're not going to see this happening in other countries. You're not going to see them rioting and protesting against the president. And somehow over here, we have all of this freedom to do all of this stuff, but it's harming the country. What did you say? Either way, I'm pretty sure that it's an overweight Caucasian male around 5'9" who removed his firearm before they shot him. He walks to the black vehicle after removing him. What does all that have to do with anything? Were they already shooting when they saw the gun? Livery. The ICE agents are doing their jobs. If you don't agree, vote. It's heavy. It's heavy. They can't think you go with what liberal media tells them. He was only standing there. The ICE agent approached him as he was filming. I'll look for that footage. So whether I come back today or tomorrow, I'll have it, and let me find it so I can watch it myself, okay? Iran had protesters, a lot of had protests, a lot of protesters died, and you see that Donald Trump tried to protect them. He's put out an order to Iran to not harm those protesters. A peaceful protest is lawful. This is not lawful. Jumping in ICE agents' face is not lawful. It's not. It's like you're threatening them. You can't come at them with vehicles. You can't park your car to where they can't do their investigation. None of that is a peaceful protest, and that's not lawful. So it needs more ICE. He's wearing a beige jacket. Okay, that's something. You can see the ICE agent take the firearm away from the victim. But why bring a firearm to a protest, though? Watch the videos. There's the left with their insults. That's what they do, and they can't get their way with the conversation. They throw insults and temper tantrums, and I'm not going to entertain you today. I'm just going to let you ride out and show the world how ignorant you are with your comments. Peronia. Okay, Justin. If you watch the video, he walks towards the black vehicle. I showed you guys the news in real time what was happening. I got this story. Someone had let me know that, hey, there was a shooting in Minneapolis. And I said, okay, let me watch it with you guys. Let me see what's happening in Minneapolis. It was declared an unlawful, oh wait, where's that coming? An unlawful assembly. Was it, Crystal? I could believe that. Detour says, protesters are not allowed to impede a federal investigation. Facts. It takes 30 agents for one illegal immigrant because of the protesters. Facts. Facts. Why are they standing in the way of this federal investigation? And the mayor is not helping by saying, oh, it's Trump's fault, or, oh, you know, Donald Trump could stop this. He could stop it. He's the mayor there. Tim Walz and the mayor there can stop this. Why are they calling for Donald Trump when it's in their city? They can make this stop, right? Fair, that's his state. He can do it, but I'm afraid, but he chooses not to. This isn't because of Donald Trump. I counted. They call us names if we don't agree with them. It's crazy. I let the ignorant comments ride, Crystal, because I like the people to see which side resorts to name callings when they don't the name calling when they don't. Oh, my dog. The dog wants some attention. Which side resort to name calling when they don't get their way with the conversation? Because I have not called you guys anything. I've been very respectful to you guys. I counted at least 5 shots while he was lying motionless. He was not aggressive. We have Second Amendment right to carry. This was an execution. Why bring a firearm to a protest when the tension's already high? Don't we have a duty to try to de-escalate something? And this is an ICU nurse. He's educated. He's able to reason. I'm not saying this man should have been unalive. This should have been handled differently, but he shouldn't have put himself in harm's way. The left are terrorists. They disarmed him, but the officer that shot just heard he's got a gun and shot him in less than seconds after being disarmed. So the officer didn't know he was disarmed. The left has been radicalized. I said this stuff would happen. It's what's happening. The far left have been. I can agree with that left. The left are terrorists. You guys, I'm reading his name. I'm not calling you guys terrorists. I'm sure social media will identify the ICE agent today or tomorrow. And if they do, I'll play it. He was 100% aggressive and was resisting. And I do wish they'll stop bringing up George Floyd in these situations. Stop using Black causes and things that Black people have fought for. Yes, we know that George Floyd happened in Minneapolis, close to where Renee Good life was taken. But we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about right now these protests with these ICE agents, and that has nothing to do with George Floyd. Carry everywhere. That's why you have the firearm. The left and the right are radicalized. Okay. Okay. Whew. So I have some. Let me look for these videos. Let me give you guys both sides of the story. I don't just speak for the political right. I also share what the left are saying. As you can see, I started out my live stream with CNN, and that was painful and hard to watch. It was. I'm so tired of the anti-Trump comments and the "this is Trump's fault," as if Trump is the one out here protesting, as if Trump is the one that elected himself into office. When Donald Trump said, "You put me in office, I'm going to clean up the immigration problem. I will clean up the border." And he elected Tom Homan and other people to help him do it. Now, what he didn't account for, well, maybe he did account for, was that the state would push back. States that were never sanctuary states before are now declaring themselves as sanctuary states to protect illegal immigrants. And it's not because they care about their plight. It's because of what that illegal immigrant, the way that they would vote, has to do with the House of Representatives and numbers that they represent and all those other things. It does not, they're not keeping them here for any other reason besides what I said. Because we know it takes a toll on our economy. And to have your state police not back up the ICE agents, you have the mayor and the governor going against the ICE agents, making it seem as if we're this big, violent country now, when you have people standing in the way of law enforcement doing their job, then we have a problem. And that's what we have in the United States happening right now. That's what we have. Kumba, you're so welcome. And I am interested in your comments, but when you start name calling, I look at your comments and I just, I'm not interested, not interested. He had a concealed carry permit. He could carry in public. I'm not disagreeing with you, Father Kumba. I'm not disagreeing with you. But all of the ammunition, why bring it to a protest full of federal agents? Am I wrong, you guys? I feel that that's asking for trouble. Good night, Detour. Thank you, Detour. I appreciate you. I just feel that that's asking for problems. And we have a duty to keep ourselves safe. First and foremost, it's my job not to put myself in harm's way. If I know that the situation is already tense, if I know that ICE agents are on high alert because their lives and their family lives have been threatened, I'm not going to put myself in the line of fire. I'm not saying he should have lost his life. Hear me. I didn't say that I agree with anyone's life being taken, because it's still a human life. But what I am saying is it's our job to de-escalate the situation. No one could do that for us but us. Good night, Detour. I predicted the Democrat states would protect the illegals. The left would attack ICE. They'd get shot. Then the left, the media, and the Dems would use that as an excuse to impose the end. Oh, wow. I didn't think about that part. The first part of it, I did think about, but now, to be honest with you guys, before I get out of here, this doesn't make Donald Trump look good. And the media knows it. The protesters know it. The paid protesters, why else would there be paid protesters and agitators? They know that with America not looking safe, it does not look that great for midterm elections. Unfortunately, some people are not able to see through the smoke screen and see what's going on with liberal media, etc. It's not a good look. It's not a good look. There has to be a way to de-escalate this situation and still take care of the border problem. And I'm going to leave it like that. He was holding a camera, not a gun. I don't know, Father Kumba. I heard both. I heard that, I mean, they showed the gun, so I'm not sure. I'm sure he had a camera probably, but he also had a gun. They showed it. I just played that for you right now. The left-wing terrorists just needed an excuse and try to impose anarchy tyranny. Crystal says, if they were peacefully protesting, then how come the police lost control of the crime scene after the ICE left that area? After ICE left the area, the governor wanted the state to handle the scene, and they couldn't. That's right. That's right. All right, let me get some more on this story. And then depending on what time I get in, you guys know I usually stream pretty late because I want to see everything that's happening. I do. I'm praying for the country and I'm praying for you guys. I'll be back later. Big hugs to you. Talk soon. Thank you for hanging out with me. Bye-bye.